Look at him, all serious. Are you writing us up or something?
Yeah, what's the verdict,
He's
counselor?
completely ignoring us, just like at the
I'm
office.
just finishing the report. You three are providing great background noise.
Background noise, rude.
Picture this. A black waiter standing in the middle of an upscale café, laptop open, trying to chase a dream between shifts. Then, laughter erupts. Not with him, but at him. 3 customers, white and well-dressed, pointing, mocking, making him the punchline of their afternoon entertainment. But what they didn't know? The CEO sitting quietly in the corner had been watching everything. What happened next would shatter their smug smiles and expose a truth about judgment, privilege, and the silent battles fought by those we overlook every single day. Marcus Bennett had always been good with numbers. Not just good, exceptional. Growing up in a single-parent household in South Philadelphia, he'd learned early that talent without opportunity was just potential collecting dust. His mother worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on, and Marcus worked 1 to help her. By day, he served coffee and pastries at the Meridian Café, an upscale spot in the business district where the price of a latte could cover his grocery bill for 3 days. By night, and during every spare moment, he coded. The laptop he carried everywhere, a refurbished ThinkPad he'd saved up for over 8 months, was more than a device. It was his ticket out. Marcus was building an app, a financial literacy platform designed for underserved communities, the kind of neighborhoods where he grew up, where credit scores were mysteries and predatory loans were normalized. He'd been working on it for nearly 2 years, teaching himself Python, JavaScript, and UI design through free online courses and library computers before he could afford his own. The Meridian was the kind of place where deals were made over espresso and handshakes sealed million-dollar partnerships. Marcus moved through it like a ghost in a white shirt and black apron, refilling cups and clearing plates, largely invisible to the clientele who saw him only as part of the ambiance. But he didn't mind. The cafe had strong Wi-Fi, and during slow afternoon shifts, his manager, a kind older woman named Helen who saw something in him, would let him sit at one of the back tables with his laptop during breaks. That Wednesday afternoon started like any other. The lunch rush had ended, leaving only a scattered handful of customers. Marcus had 45 minutes before the evening prep began. He settled into his usual corner table, laptop open, reviewing code for the payment integration feature he'd been troubleshooting for weeks. His fingers moved across the keyboard with quiet confidence, his world narrowing to lines of code and possibility. He didn't notice them at first, the group of 4 that walked in and took the large table near the window. 3 white professionals in expensive business casual. 2 men in their 40s, one in a tailored blazer with perfectly styled silver hair, the other in a crisp button-down that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. With them was a woman, blonde, immaculate makeup, the kind of polished appearance that came from personal trainers and regular spa appointments. They carried themselves with the easy confidence of people who'd never been told no without being able to buy a yes. The 4th person in their group was different. An older black man in a simple but well-fitted suit, quiet, observant. He took the seat facing Marcus's direction and ordered simply black coffee, no sugar. Something about his stillness suggested he was listening more than talking, watching more than being watched. Marcus was too absorbed to notice any of it. He was close to a breakthrough, his brow furrowed in concentration, occasionally jotting notes in the worn notebook beside his laptop. To anyone paying attention, it was clear he was working on something complex, something that demanded focus and skill. But to the 3 laughing at the window table, swapping stories about client acquisitions and quarterly bonuses, he was just the help, forgetting his place. Helen brought them their drinks, smiling professionally, making small talk about the weather and the new seasonal menu. The silver-haired man barely acknowledged her, already back to his phone. The woman stirred her cappuccino absently, her eyes wandering around the cafe with the bored expression of someone killing time before something more important. And then her gaze landed on Marcus, on his laptop, on the sight of a black waiter in uniform sitting during work hours, using technology that didn't fit her narrow narrative of who she thought he should be. Her perfectly painted lips curved into a smirk. She leaned to her companions and whispered something. The laughter started.
The first laugh was quiet, almost contained, a snicker hidden behind a manicured hand, but it spread like wildfire. The silver-haired man glanced over his shoulder at Marcus, then back to the woman, grinning. The other man joined in, shaking his head with theatrical disbelief. Their voices carried across the cafe, not quite shouting, but loud enough that Marcus heard his own status become the subject of their amusement.
"Is that the waiter on a laptop?"
the woman said, not quite whispering. "What's he doing? Updating his resume to Starbucks?" More laughter, sharp, cutting. Marcus's fingers paused over the keyboard. He felt the heat rise in his chest, that familiar cocktail of shame and anger that black people learn to swallow in white spaces. He kept his eyes on the screen, trying to maintain focus, trying to finish the function he was debugging. Just ignore them. They'll get bored. They always do. But they didn't. "Maybe he's applying for food stamps online," the silver-haired man chimed in, loud enough now that other customers glanced over. "That's probably the only application he knows how to fill out." The woman laughed harder, her hand resting on the man's arm in that casual intimacy of people who share the same jokes, the same assumptions, the same comfortable cruelty. "Honestly, though, doesn't management care? I mean, we're paying premium prices here and the staff is just sitting around playing on computers? What's next? Gaming tournaments in the break room?" The other man pulled out his phone. "I should leave a review. Great coffee, but the service is too busy with social media to actually serve." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, breathed. His mama's voice echoed in his head. "Baby, you're going to encounter people who see your skin before they see your soul. Don't let them steal your peace. Do your work, prove them wrong, and let God handle the rest." He saved his work and closed the laptop slowly, deliberately, kept his face neutral, even though his jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. He stood, picking up his laptop and notebook, preparing to move to the back room where he wouldn't be their entertainment. But the woman wasn't done. "Oh, look, he's finally getting back to work," she announced, her voice dripping with performative approval. "Good for you, honey. Ambition is great, but maybe focus on the job you actually have before dreaming about the ones you don't." Her companions roared. It was a spectacle now. Marcus could feel every eye in the cafe on him, some sympathetic, most just uncomfortable, a few amused. He felt small, exposed, reduced to a stereotype, a punchline, a caricature they'd invented without knowing a single thing about him. His hand gripped the laptop tighter. His throat felt thick. The silver-haired man called out to him directly now, waving him over like summoning a dog. "Hey, buddy, since you're up, can we get some refills and maybe less time on the computer, more time on customer service? Just a thought." Professional. Stay professional. Marcus walked toward their table, coffee pot in hand, his face an unreadable mask. He refilled their cups in silence, the only sound the gentle pour of coffee into expensive ceramic. "Thank you," the woman said with exaggerated sweetness, the kind that's meaner than outright insults. "See, you're actually pretty good at this when you focus." Marcus didn't respond, didn't make eye contact, just turned to walk away. "You know what your problem is?" the woman continued, her voice following him like a shadow. "People like you always think you're entitled to more than what you've earned. You want the laptop lifestyle, the Silicon Valley dream, but you're not willing to put in the real work. That's why you're here in an apron instead of a boardroom." People like you. Those words landed like a slap. Marcus stopped walking, his back still turned to them. Every muscle in his body screamed to spin around, to speak, to defend himself, to shatter their ignorance with truth. But he knew how that story ended. A black man raising his voice in anger at white customers? He'd be the villain, he'd lose his job, he'd become the aggressive one, the threatening one, the one who couldn't control his emotions. So he swallowed it. All of it. The rage, the humiliation, the suffocating weight of being judged, mocked, and dismissed based on nothing but the color of his skin and the uniform he wore to survive. He walked into the back room and set the coffee pot down with shaking hands. Helen found him there moments later, her face creased with concern. "Marcus, honey, I saw what happened. I'm so sorry. Those people are—" "It's fine," Marcus said flatly, even though it wasn't, even though he could feel his dreams, his dignity, his sense of self all crumbling under the weight of their laughter. "It's not fine," Helen said firmly. "I should throw them out." "Don't." Marcus looked at her, his eyes tired. "They're paying customers. I'm just the help. That's how this works." Helen started to protest, but Marcus turned away, pulling out his phone, pretending to be busy. She left reluctantly, and Marcus stood there in the silence of the back room, wondering for the 1,000th time if any amount of hard work, talent, or ambition could ever overcome the assumptions people made about him before he even opened his mouth. Out in the café, the laughter continued. The woman ordered another round of drinks, still giggling about the waiter with big dreams. The silver-haired man was already composing a mocking social media post in his head. They were untouchable, righteous in their mockery, certain that they were punching down at someone who deserved it. But the fourth person at their table, the quiet, observant black man in the simple suit, hadn't laughed once. He'd been watching Marcus the entire time, watching the way he coded with focus and skill, watching the way he held his composure under fire, watching the way he chose dignity over confrontation. And when Marcus finally emerged from the back room, face carefully neutral, returning to his duties, the quiet man caught his eye for just a moment. There was something in that look, recognition, respect, perhaps even solidarity. The woman noticed. "David, you've been awfully quiet. Don't you think it's absurd? A waiter with a laptop?" The man, David, set down his coffee slowly. When he spoke, his voice was calm, measured, with an authority that shifted the entire energy of the table. "Actually, Vanessa, I think what's absurd is making assumptions about someone's worth based on their current circumstances. But that's just me." The table fell silent, uncomfortable. The woman's smile faltered. David stood, adjusting his jacket. "Marcus," he called across the café, "would you mind if I spoke with you privately for a moment in that back corner booth?" The café held its breath.
Marcus's heart hammered in his chest as he walked toward the corner booth, trying to read the expression on David's face. Was this another humiliation? A lecture? Some kind of test? In his experience, nothing good came from being singled out by customers, especially after what just happened. David gestured to the seat across from him. "Please, sit." Marcus sat, his body tense, ready for whatever blow was coming. David pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. Marcus looked down at it, and his breath caught. David Okonkwo, Chief Executive Officer, Tech Bridge Ventures. Marcus knew that name. Everyone in the tech startup world knew that name. Tech Bridge Ventures was one of the most successful venture capital firms in the country, focusing specifically on funding minority-owned tech startups. David Okonkwo was a legend, a Nigerian immigrant who'd built a billion-dollar empire and dedicated it to creating opportunities for people who looked like him, like Marcus, people who were constantly told they didn't belong in boardrooms or on cap tables. "I've been sitting with those people for 30 minutes, David said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that made Marcus lean in. "Supposed to be discussing an investment. They came highly recommended by a mutual contact. But you know what I learned in 30 minutes? They're the kind of people who see a black man in service and assume that's all he'll ever be. The kind who laugh at dreams instead of asking questions. The kind who measure worth by appearance rather than substance." Marcus's throat felt tight. He didn't trust himself to speak.
I saw you working on that laptop. I saw code, real code, complex stuff. And I saw how you handled their cruelty with more grace than they deserved." He paused. "What are you building?" The question hit Marcus like light breaking through clouds. No one ever asked him that. No one ever cared. A financial literacy app," Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. "For communities like the one I grew up in. Places where people are brilliant with stretching a dollar, but get exploited by systems they don't understand. Payday loans, credit card debt, predatory practices. I want to build something that teaches people how money works, helps them build credit, avoid scams, plan for futures they've been told they don't deserve." David's eyes lit up. "Show me." With trembling hands, Marcus opened his laptop and walked David through the prototype. The interface he'd designed to be intuitive for users with limited tech experience. The gamification elements to make financial education engaging. The partnerships he was trying to build with community organizations. The AI features that would provide personalized advice without the judgment or fees of traditional financial advisors. David asked questions. Sharp, insightful questions that showed he understood both the technical and social dimensions of what Marcus was building. And as they talked, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Seen. Actually seen. Not as a waiter, not as a demographic, not as a charity case, but as a creator, an innovator, someone with genuine vision and skill. "How much runway do you have?" David asked. Marcus laughed bitterly. "Runway? I'm building this between shifts and on days off. I can't afford to think about runway. I'm just trying to finish a working prototype so I can start pitching." "And then what? You'll pitch to rooms full of people who'll make the same assumptions that group just made?" Marcus didn't answer because they both knew the truth. The statistics were brutal. Black founders received less than 2% of venture capital funding. He'd face 1,000 Vanessas on his path to funding, each one seeing his skin before his pitch deck. David leaned back, studying him. "I'm going to make you an offer, Marcus. Not charity, not pity, business. I want to invest in your app. Seed funding. Enough for you to quit this job, bring on a small team, and get to market within 6 months. In exchange, TechBridge takes a standard equity stake, and I mentor you personally through the scaling process." Marcus's entire world tilted. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "But first," David said, standing up, "there's something I need to do." He walked back to the table where Vanessa and the two men sat, their laughter now replaced with uncomfortable silence. They'd clearly been watching the exchange, their expressions ranging from confusion to dawning horror as they started to piece together who David Okonkwo actually was. David looked at Vanessa directly. "Our meeting is over. TechBridge won't be investing in your firm. And just so you understand why, it's because in 30 minutes you've shown me exactly who you are. You're the kind of people who mistake cruelty for wit and prejudice for insight. You're everything wrong with this industry." Vanessa's face went white. "That waiter you mocked," David gestured toward Marcus. "He's going to change lives, build wealth for communities you've never even thought about. And I'm going to help him do it." He turned his back on them and walked back to Marcus. "Now," David said with a slight smile, "let's talk terms."
6 months later, Marcus stood in front of a room full of investors, community leaders, and press at the official launch of FinWise, his financial literacy app that had just secured Series A funding and partnerships with 3 major community development organizations. The event was held in a sleek downtown venue, the kind of space that used to intimidate him, that used to feel like it wasn't built for people like him. But now he belonged here. not because he'd changed who he was, but because he'd finally found people who valued what he'd always been. David stood off to the side, arms crossed, proud smile on his face, as Marcus delivered his pitch with the confidence of someone who'd earned every word. The app was beautiful, intuitive, empowering, already making a difference in beta communities where users reported feeling for the first time in their lives that they had control over their financial futures. Helen from the Meridian Cafe sat in the front row, beaming. Marcus had insisted she be there, had even hired her teenage daughter as a community outreach coordinator. "You saw me when no one else did," he'd told her. "That matters more than you'll ever know." After the presentation, during the networking reception, a young black woman approached Marcus nervously, wearing a name tag that identified her as a local college student. "Mr. Bennett," she said quietly, "I just wanted to say thank you. My family has been using Finwise for 3 months. My mom paid off a predatory loan and raised her credit score by 80 points. She cried when she saw the number. She never thought that was possible for people like us." Marcus felt his throat tighten. This was why he'd endured the mockery, the doubt, the 1,000 small cuts of people underestimating him based on where he worked or how he looked. Every line of code he'd written in that cafe, every moment he'd chosen to keep building instead of breaking had been for her mother, for all the people society had written off as statistics instead of seeing as human beings with dreams and potential. "Tell your mom she did that herself," Marcus said gently. "The app is just a tool. Her courage to try, to believe she deserved better, that's what changed everything." As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, David pulled Marcus aside. "You know what the most powerful thing about today was?" David asked. Marcus shook his head. "It wasn't the funding or the partnerships, or even the app itself, though all of that's incredible. It was watching you stand in your truth and not apologize for it. Not shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Not let their limitations define your possibilities." David paused. "That day in the cafe, I didn't just see a talented coder being mocked. I saw every black professional who's ever been underestimated, dismissed, told they don't belong in spaces they built. And I saw someone who refused to internalize those lies." Marcus thought back to that afternoon, to Vanessa's laughter, to the weight of humiliation, to the moment he'd almost let their ignorance define him. "I wanted to quit, not just that day, but so many days before it. I kept thinking maybe they're right, maybe I'm delusional, maybe I should just accept my place. But you didn't. No, I didn't, because my mama raised me to know that their perception of me is not my reality. And because people like you exist, people who see past the apron to the person underneath."